Okay, hello everyone. My name is Dr. Matt Greer, and I serve the Northeast Greek Leadership Association as our assistant conference chair for this year. I want to thank you for joining us for our NGLA Keynote Sampler. I'm glad that you were able to join us. Today's session gives us a first look at what is ahead for the 2026 NGLA Annual Conference and a chance to hear directly from this year's keynote speakers. So before we jump in with introductions, we will allow us to know a little bit more about our speakers themselves. So we have Michelle Guobadia, who will be presenting Be a Dream Maker, Your Role in Making Fraternity and Sorority Life Great. Billy Boulden, who is presenting More Than Enough, Belonging Starts With You. And John Beede, who is presenting Climb On, Successful Strategies for an Everest Mountaineer. So we'll spend the next about 45-ish minutes getting to know the ideas behind their messages, how they hope to challenge and support our communities, and where they see the fraternal movement heading. To start us off, I'll ask each of our keynotes for one word that captures the message that you hope attendees will walk away with after your keynote. Don't overthink this. Just what is the first word that comes to mind from your keynote itself? And we'll kick off with Michelle.
One word, I'm going to say energized.
Awesome. Billy?
My one word is going to be intention.
Awesome. And John?
Expansion.
Okay. Well, I'm super excited to hear how those are going to come to fruition in these keynote conversations and what this kind of looks like. So we are going to have each of you kind of talk about what is your core message or takeaways from your keynote, and how do you inspire the message behind your keynote itself? Let's go in reverse order this time. So John, if you want to kick off with what inspired your message behind the keynote?
A really good question. Thanks for asking. Climbing the tallest mountain on every continent taught me that something that's very unexpected, that success is never about just one single moment, like reaching the top. These are arbitrary points in the middle of the sky that really don't mean anything. They're cold, they're rocky, they're icy. It's really about who you are in taking the next step, the next breath, that next decision that you take when things are uncertain and when everything looks like it's going to fall apart. That is the moment that defines who you are. And in these moments and years of really working with student leaders, I've seen the same pattern show up on campuses that I've also seen in the world's tallest mountains. We often think that the next big challenge is external, but when really the big real challenge is what goes on within us. It's not about discomfort tolerance, but it's about being excited for discomfort. It's about decision-making that happens in the midst of uncertainty. It's in resilience that we find in ourselves after setbacks. And I've also learned that long-term endurance is what's most required in order to achieve these big long-term goals. It's not in having this one moment in the future. It's about who you are in the moment of every single step. And I think that that's the message that I want everyone to be inspired by.
Awesome. That is some great messaging. And I mean, I know I can't wait to hear some of these pieces and to really know how we are going to inspire our student attendees to have those both challenging conversations, but also to the persevere and really persist through in that type of way. Billy, how about you in that same note?
Yeah, John has me inspired already. I'm ready to sit and learn more from John as well. You know, I think it's important to understand from me that I am an oversized child. And anytime I can play with toys or go back to my childhood, it just gives me energy. And so I think about that, and I think about specifically Legos and playing with Legos. And one of the worst pains that I have ever experienced in my life is stepping on a Lego on the floor. And I have to ask myself, how did that happen? How did I get to a place that my Legos are on the floor and I'm stepping on them? Because I love my Legos and I want to play with them and I want to build these, structures and these creations and do all these incredible things. but somehow a piece of that puzzle gets left off the table and ends up on the floor and causes serious pain. And so I share this to think about, how do we think about the role that toys play into our own leadership style and to what we're doing in our organizations. Nobody means for the Lego to end up on the floor. Just like in our organizations, we don't often intend for negative things to happen. We want to have positive outcomes and positive experiences. But something about our environment and the culture that we've created allows for something to end up out of place or to enact negative action. And so my hope through the program is that we can have a real honest dialogue and engage with each other in a way that lets us focus on what is the environment, what is the culture we're trying to create, and find pathways to do that, so nobody has to experience the pain of stepping on a Lego.
No, awesome. I love that metaphor piece. I think that can relate to a lot, when we're looking at those building blocks of leadership and what we're trying to help to add to that toolkit of our attendees overall. Michelle, how about you?
Thanks. Billy, so cool that you use Legos. I just built my first Lego set. So I know that pain right off gate, losing it off the table and then also stepping on it. But I just built my first one. So I'm all in with the play. For me, with Be the Dream Maker, I remember being a new member. I remember being a leader in my sorority. I remember being a leader in my council. And at every turn, I kept trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing here? I kept thinking, what is the next step? What is the sign that I'm waiting for to be a change agent, to move the needle forward, to make sure we are really performing at our optimum levels as chapters, as fraternity and sorority people, and as councils. And in Be the Dream Maker, we talk about that. We go all the way back to the foundational roots of our fraternities and sororities. Why are we here? And then we get real. I think sometimes as fraternity and sorority members, we need a shot of reality of what is going on in the world with our groups and how we are either affecting that or we can be the change in the fraternity and sorority community. And we talk about the dream of the founders of our organization and what they wanted for the organization and how we have gone beyond their wildest dreams, but we've also made a couple of left turns that didn't go so well. So we're going to explore what are the things that we need to do, things like accountability, about being relevant, particularly to our alma mater and our institution and our community. We're going to talk about collaboration and community and what does it mean to be a Greek system or a Greek community. We're going to talk about utilizing the resources at hand, whether you're a new member, a seasoned member, or an alum on your way out. We're going to talk about dream killing behavior that some of our groups have engaged in and has cast a shadow on fraternity and sorority life and what we can do to make it better. Fraternity and sorority life is not going anywhere, but it takes all of us together doing the right things at the right times to really move our community forward. And we're going to examine that. We're going to take some hard looks at that, some hard truths. And my hope that when students leave my keynote, they'll be inspired and they get the sign that they've been waiting for on what do I do now and what is the next step.
No, awesome. I mean, I think, relating back to an understanding of where we are and how we got to where we are today, right? Like that is, I think, a huge piece of what maybe some students aren't even thinking about in their everyday experience, or how their organization or chapter currently exists through that lens. So I guess with your keynote, what does it mean to be that dream maker in today's fraternity and sorority life world itself? How would you really define that out for those that this is maybe the first time they're hearing that?
They got to really meditate and be introspective on, why did you join? Why are you here? Because you could do service and philanthropy without us. You could do it for free. So why are you here? And it can't just be for a social outlet. And I think in today's changing world where there are issues and there are problems, there is fraternity and sorority, and we are the people who can fix it. We're the ones who can make those dreams a reality. And I think as students navigate not only their campus and the universities and the colleges, but society, it is the ritual, the foundation, our oath, our creed, our motto that can be our guiding light. that can really help us find the way. So I think in today's society, fraternity and sorority is the most relevant it's ever been and most needed, really. And how do we tap into that energy and to make things around us and in the world better? That's what the dream is all about. I think some of us are sleeping, we're not dreaming. And we need to get back to doing that by understanding what exactly did we join, why are we here, and how are we going to leave this whole thing better than we found it?
No, awesome. I guess for those students that maybe are um, feeling taxed or overwhelmed in those types of ways, how or what advice do you really have that could help them to make those shifts in their chapter or community in that type of way?
I think it's important that students know their role. And during the keynote, we talk about what is your role in your community, in your chapter, in your council. Are you the rock star? Are you the Greek rock star? Are you a mover and a shaker and you're making sure everything gets done? But are you also taking care of yourself? Are you also teaching others how to lead? Are you mentoring others? Are you the quintessential t-shirt wearer? And while you might have the letters on your chest, are you doing anything with that? Are you giving any energy to the organization? Or are you just weighing it down? And then everyone else, they're team players and team players in different degrees. Are you a team player who shows up for chapter, shows up prepared, pays your dues? You step up for leadership, you step up to be on committees, you're doing your part. I think students can feel overwhelmed if they feel like they're doing it all. There is shared responsibility in our organization. There's opportunities for everyone to learn, everyone to grow, and everyone to shift with the chapter. It's an evolution, but it doesn't fall on two or three shoulders, it falls on everyone. And if you can't tap into you doing your part, then maybe you're weighing everyone down. And we have to take a hard look at that because that can be overwhelming, but that could also overwhelm other people. I don't think the concept of fraternity and sorority life is so huge that we can't tackle it. I think it's very much doable if we do what our creed tells us to do, to join hands with one another and to go and solve problems together using our values as that foundation. So I can see how it's overwhelming. I think life is overwhelming, but I think when done together, we really can go far by doing it as a team, as a community, as a council, as a chapter. And I think we need to go back to what that looks like for all of our groups.
No, awesome. I definitely relate to those pieces of feeling like you are the only one pushing something forward or the only one there, but how do we really help to share some of those messaging pieces and get those people on our teams and ensure that we aren't just those letter wearers, right? And that we are actively living those values of our organizations too. I think that's great. Thanks so much, Michelle. So Billy, as we kind of chalk into more of your keynote pieces, what does belonging look like in practice, and how can fraternity and sorority members make it real on their campuses and really feel those types of pieces itself?
Well, I think to simply think about it, belonging is about how we feel accepted and how we feel included and how we fit in. And a lot of times that comes from connections or identities or different values that we hold. I think a challenge in fraternity or sorority is that I think too often our members believe that belonging is something that you have to earn. And belonging is not something that is earned. It is something that is 100% given. We give belonging to people. Fraternity and sorority is one of the greatest gifts that you can give somebody. To give somebody the offer of membership, to be included, to be a part of your group is one of the most rewarding things that you can give to somebody. And so when we think about our experience as fraternities and sororities, we think about the environment that we're trying to create and the culture that we're trying to develop, we have to take responsibility for belonging. We can't put that on somebody else. Most of us have sat in a chapter meeting or a student org meeting or a business meeting even, where the positional leader in charge has said, hey, we need somebody on Saturday to go do this. Who wants to do it? And then we sit there in silence because nobody wants to sign up to do that thing. I think this is a great example of how sorority and fraternity leaders can start to think about how they can create belonging. So then it's no longer, hey, we need a volunteer to come and do this on Saturday. It's, hey, David, Michelle, Matt, I think y'all would be so incredible at this opportunity. This is a unique opportunity for you to be involved to represent our organization. Are you interested in doing this on Saturday? Here's what it's going to look like. Here's what it's going to mean. And so we can start to create belonging from our intentions and our actions and the choices that we make as leaders of the organizations without putting the responsibility on the people coming in to have to figure out exactly how they fit in and how they show up and how they mesh with our group. We need to show up with our identities, with our values, and cultivate that culture that we want to see for our members in our organization.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think like that leaning in and that servant leadership aspect of getting your hands in there with your constituents and those types of pieces definitely lean into some of those conversations. I'm just thinking through like some of my chapter leadership that talks through like we have cliques in our chapter, and this doesn't help to foster some of those belonging pieces, and it is ingrained in our chapter culture because of that. So what is some feedback or things that you would say that they could do about those types of situations when they don't feel like belonging is really instilled in the chapter experience?
I think first we have to sit and talk about bi-center intervention, because a lot of times we're all waiting for somebody else to take action. We see that as somebody else's job. Oh, well, I can't help do that because I'm not the new member educator, or I'm not the intake coordinator, or I'm not the president of this organization, or our advisor says that this is the way that it's been and we have to do this. And so we just sit there in silence. And silence is going to kill our organizations. It's going to tear us apart. We need to be able to create a space and an environment where we're willing to step up and talk about things, that we can collaborate with each other, and we can fully invest into what we want. Too often we sit in an organization and we see things that aren't going right, and we just endure it until people quit or walk away or decide that membership's no longer worth the price they paid. This experience is far too expensive to walk away. Let's talk dollars and cents for a minute. We put so much money and so much investment into being members of this organization. We need to get all of our benefit out of that. And that means we have to be fully invested, that we have to take the responsibility for engaging in some of those spaces and conversations. And so if there's cliques in our organizations, or there's a disruption that's not allowing us to come together, then we need to speak up and we need to say that. I remember being an undergrad member of my chapter, and we had this whole big election process where the sophomores, disrupted the process, and they weren't supposed to win the officer positions. The juniors were supposed to be the next officers of the chapter. But the sophomores won the election and they took over, and it caused this divide in our chapter because people thought the sophomores weren't prepared to take on that leadership role. And we weren't, but that's what they thought. And so it created this big divide in our chapter. And it took us having to come together and say, hey, you know what? We all want the best thing for our chapter. Let's sit down, let's talk about this experience together. Let's talk about why we're divided, why we don't see these people the right fit. How can we help them get more skills and abilities to fill the gaps so the juniors are seeing? The reality is the majority of the chapter elected the sophomores to be in these roles. So the majority of the people were actually in favor of these people moving the organization forward. But we wouldn't have ever resolved that if we didn't sit down and have dialogue and conversation with each other, and opened up to be vulnerable and to share our emotions and feelings and talk to each other about how we were feeling about the organization and the direction of our organization. And so it really takes everybody in the organization coming to the table and being an active participant in what they're doing to create a sense of belonging.
Yeah, I definitely love that vulnerability piece, and the way that plays into that belonging and feeling comfortable to be yourself and to express your emotions and what you're feeling in those types of ways. And also, like, there's no magic elixir to fix any of those problems types of things either, right? Like, we need to make progress along the way. We can't just go from from 100 back to 0 real quick in order to fix any of those things. So I definitely relate with a lot of those messaging in that type of way. Thanks, Billy. John, for you, how does your experience in Everest translate into lessons for our student leaders striving to reach their own summits as they, look forward to hearing your keynote in February?
Yeah, Matt, I love this question. So when I was trekking to Everest Base Camp, there was a yak, and I saw that its horn was bent off to the side. It was angled downward. And I asked a local, how did this happen to this yak? And he tells me this story. A yak was crossing a bridge, and the planks were wooden. So the yak's hoof breaks through the plank. The entire yak bursts through the bridge. And as the yak is trying to stop its tumble down the canyon side, it's using its horn, pulling at the earth, trying to stop itself. And that's how the horn got pulled off to the side. The yak failed at stopping its fall. It tumbles into the river. But the yak's carrying bags on its back, which are made of rubber. They're rubberized. So they act like a life jacket, and the yak floats 2 miles down the river until two ladies doing laundry were like, is that a yak floating down the river? Yeah, that's a yak floating down the river. They reach out, grab the yak by the horns, yank it back up on shore. And to answer your question, how does my experience in climbing Everest translate into lessons for student leaders? Everyone is in a moment just like this, where you are given a setback. Something is difficult, like in the question asked to Michelle, you feel overwhelmed, or when Billy said, you face this awkward moment of, are you going to give belonging to the person who you aren't sure you feel belonging from? It's in these moments of awkwardness when we have to grow within our discomfort. And it's in those moments that each of us needs to learn to take the next step, just like the yak did. Are you going to shake off the water and then continue towards your goal? Or will you say, that was too hard, that was too difficult, I'm going to go back to how things were and head back down the hill? If you want to gain altitude in any endeavor, it is in that one moment, that one decision of who am I going to be in this moment of discomfort? Am I going to step into it and find out who I will become? Or will I shrink and cower and go back to how things were?
Awesome. So I guess in that one moment, how do you stay motivated? What drives and pushes in order to like keep that motivation going to say like, yes, I am going to reach that goal of the summit in this example, or, you know, whatever that goal might be for our attendees?
Amazing follow-up. When you're actually climbing, so not on the way to base camp, but when you're at altitude above 8,000 meters or above 26,000 feet above sea level, we climb in the darkness at nighttime. That way we can have the most solid, firm ice underneath our feet. And that means we can only see however far our headlamp can shine in front of us. And this is incredibly instructive for all challenges in life, because I'm not focused on what is going to happen in 4 hours from now, 4 months from now, 4 years from now. Instead, I only focus on what I can control that is immediately in front of me, my next solid step, not the entire mountain, just the next immediate action. Yes, you have this idea of what will be in front of you, hours to come, months to come, years to come later. But for staying motivated in the moment, you shrink your locus of control. You shrink your concentric circles of what you're going to work on, and just work on that one extended handshake, smiling. Am I going to bring my best human being to this interaction when I'm recruiting a new member? Am I going to bring my best moment to this speech when you're giving that presentation? And it's in taking these smaller steps, shrinking your circle of what you're going to focus on, that you reduce overwhelm, you generate momentum. And in that generation of momentum, you create self-belief, you create confidence. It's in this generation of momentum that each next step becomes more and more possible and easier. So when things feel overwhelming, don't try and find motivation. Instead, take one single action, the easiest possible action in front of you. Even if that's just putting your feet on the floor in the morning and brushing your teeth. Like, what is the smallest thing that you can do in this moment that will generate momentum? And when you do that, that momentum will unlock more motivation. And then that will create more action. That's how you climb any mountain, the next immediate step.
Awesome. I love that. I mean, I definitely think, you know, finding that low-hanging fruit to chain your goals, right? Like we want to see that first step that we can take so that way we can continue that motivation through, and seeing small step after small step lead to our larger picture and larger goal.
Nailed it.
So for all of you in this type of way, what do you think the fraternal movement needs most from its leaders right now, that you hope to instill in your keynote conversation with our undergrads currently? Michelle, if you want to take this one first.
I think what the fraternal movement needs now is leaders with courage, leaders with the courage to try new things, to do things differently, to break away from this. We've always done it like this, or this is tradition, or our alumni want us to do it like this. We need courage for our leaders to not only do the right thing, but inspire the right action in its members. Those are things we need right now. Even as a campus professional, I need that from my students right now. And I can't teach courage. I can't teach courage. I can teach you how to do recruitment. I can teach you how to do intake. I can teach you, those how to fill out this form for our office. But courage has to come from your inspiration for wanting better for your community and for your members and for your fraternity and sorority. So I think that's one of the things we need the most: some courageous leaders who are ready to jump in and do what needs to be done to really make sure we're having an amazing fraternity and sorority experience across the country and around the world, really. So that would be the thing I think we're looking for the most.
Awesome. Billy, what's your thoughts on what is needed?
I love that Michelle jumped right in with courage, because I think that's a theme or a message you're probably going to hear from all three of us, is the courage it takes. I think part of this is that leaders aren't waiting for the perfect moment to make something happen. They create the moments by moving and by taking action. And a lot of people can be in a role or a position and share this great vision and talk a great talk, but leaders move forward in some way. And so that's really what we need this generation of sorority and fraternity leaders to be able to do, is to think about taking the next step and to have the courage, as Michelle said, to do that.
Awesome. John, any additional thoughts on what our current undergrads need from these conversations?
Yeah, I think that the fraternal movement needs leaders who will choose values over convenience. It is really easy to talk about brotherhood, sisterhood, community, but the real test is whether those values show up in the small, really unglamorous moments, like how we treat the new member when nobody's watching, how we support somebody who's struggling, and how we handle conflict without gossip or passive-aggressive avoidance. Do we live the values that we put up on the website and that are on the creed? Or do we compromise these moments when things feel awkward and uncomfortable? So I think that the fraternal movement needs leaders who are willing to embody the values that they signed up for when they said, yes, I want to pay these dues. Yes, I want to be involved in this organization. Yes, I want to be a part of this community. Are you actually going to embody these values, especially when it's not easy?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it continues to take work, right? And there's a lot of mental load on our students that has been exacerbated, I think, since the pandemic, and has really affected the way that they view maybe even themselves and leadership in those types of lights, that we definitely have to address when we're talking about that resiliency piece and having that courage to step up and do the right thing in those types of moments. I'm curious, when it comes to resiliency and really stepping up in leadership in those types of ways, how do your messages really reflect some of those conversations when we're talking about persevering, resilience, and really stepping up in leadership through to persevere in that type of light? And Billy, if you want to take this one first.
One of the things that I think about is how can we make the secret stuff less secret, right? And so when we think about our organizations, we're all the same. We might just have a different way that we do it, but it doesn't matter what organization you joined. Here's the secret. Like, I'm just going to tell everybody. So if you're out there, listen up. Here's the secrets, right? In our initiation ceremonies, we all have a moment in which we make the same commitment. Some of us might dress up. Some of us might be asked to put other clothing on. Some of us might wear white. Our Panhellenic organizations, like they're going to sing a song. Our men's organizations are probably going to have real fire on our candles and not the battery operated ones because we like those things, right? But at the end of the day, we're going to stand in front of our peers and we're going to say, I promise to be a better human and to help other people become a better human. We are successful as organizations when our members uphold that promise. And so that's what it's going to take. It's going to take us reminding ourselves of why we're here to begin with. Why are we a part of this organization? If you didn't want to make that commitment, you shouldn't have joined a sorority or fraternity. You could have joined any other club on campus. But it's reminding our members of the commitment they made and asking them to uphold that because we all made the same promise.
Not you being in my ceremony, knowing exactly what we did. I think, the secrecy piece, is really not necessarily out of the bag, but like a lot of us do, a lot of those same ceremony types of pieces, but really relating and understanding those pieces, right? Like ritual is weird. How do we debrief those conversations to really help to understand what we just talked through or went through in that type of way? That's awesome. Thanks, Billy. Michelle, do you have additional pieces that you wanted to add to that resiliency piece?
I think people throw out resilience a lot. Like, you got to be resilient, you got to fight through, you got to tough through. Resilience is that in the face of adversaries, at things that come at you, problems in your chapter, issues, things that are not advantageous, right? In the face of that, you rise. You rise. You don't crumble, you don't cower, you don't run in the opposite direction. You rise. One of my favorite acronyms is FEAR, right? FEAR is face everything and rise. That's what resiliency is. And I think all of our keynotes touch on that. Our founders were resilient. The first people on campus were men, and the administration was like, go away. No, you can't start these groups. What did the men do? They started these secret societies, right? So we're going to do this anyway. The second people on campus were women, and the women are like, what are you doing? And the men are like, these are fraternities. Can we join? They're like, no. So the women are like, well, you know what? We're just going to start our own. It's going to be better. Just wait 1 second. Who are the third people on campus? People who look like me, people of color. We want to come to school too. We're like, hey, can we join? And people were like, no. And we're like, why not? And they're like, no. Okay, fine, cool. We'll go start our own. At every step, the founders of our organizations were resilient. We need to tap into that with the issues that are smaller in comparison to what some of the founders of our organizations have had to deal with, but also bigger when we talk about risk management and some things that are plaguing our organization. We need to be resilient in combating that. We need to be resilient in fighting back towards that. We need to be resilient in finding solutions to end some things once and for all. I'm still shocked hazing is a thing. I am shocked. I am shocked. It shouldn't exist in our organizations, not if we are these noble and worthy and amazing groups that we say we are. And yet here we are. We need to be resilient in finding that. We need to be resilient in drugs and alcohol and how they're affecting our chapters. No one's saying you can't have a social event, but we need to be responsible for our brothers, our sisters, our guests. We need to take a look at the things that are plaguing us, and we need to be resilient in the face of that. And I think the time is now. And honestly, these are the students. If our generation couldn't get it right, because I've been grade 25 years. If I couldn't get it together, then I have to believe that it is the students right before us who got the solutions and the ideas. They have more resources than we did. They have more energy. They have more education. I think their resiliency is the key to making things better.
No, I couldn't. That you did it. That was it. Left me speechless. No. I think one of the pieces that really came to light is understanding leadership, right? Like the piece that leadership is the action. It's not that positional piece. Just because I hold that positional leadership doesn't mean that I'm actually the leader. So like we're saying we're doing these things, but our actions aren't reflecting that same piece in that type of way too. Awesome. John, additional pieces that you want to add to this part of the resiliency conversation?
These were such good intersections that Billy and Michelle have already described. So I'll share a story. When climbing glaciated mountains, which are mountains that have glaciers on them, we tie up as rope teams. So there's about 15 or 20 feet of rope between the leader, the middle two people, and the last person. The reason we do this is so that if any one person falls through the ice into a crevasse, which are giant holes in the ice, all other three people, their job is to jump down onto the ice with their ice axe and their crampons, the spikes on their boots, and stop the fall of the other. And that's what I hear being in common with all of our keynotes. We're all going to act at our best, and we're also going to look out for everyone else who's in our chapter or on our rope team. And unless you are at your best for yourself, you can't also stop others from falling into their crevasses or their holes in the ice when they have those moments. And that's also how you can trust that your team is going to look out for you, is if everyone is at their best, on point, acting by their values, that is going to reach everyone else to the top despite the obstacles that are in the way.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you got to identify those obstacles, right? Like you need to know that these things are actually barriers to you in order to then be able to push through them, and really identifying the problems before just running for the goal, right? In that type of way, and having that plan in place.
And these examples that Michelle gave of hazing and alcohol abuse and chat within, like these are the crevasses. These are the obstacles. So sorry to interrupt, but yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah. So I guess overall, as speakers, what excites you about speaking, particularly with our NGLA community this year? What's the secret sauce of your excitement as a speaker overall? John, if you want to go first, you can.
Oh, thank you. The thing that excites me most is to look each individual in the eye, shake hands with everyone who is at the conference, and experience what your story is. The thing that really excites me most is to get to know each of you before I speak, and then share like how all these things connect and relate with mountains, and have the opportunity to give back.
Awesome. We'll make sure we have some extra hand sanitizer for you as we.
I'm also up for knucks or elbows if you're up for that. I'll tap feet, whatever you need.
No, we love that connection, right? Like we want to know the people that we're talking to. So love that piece itself too. Billy, what excites you?
Well, I think first and foremost for me, I think it's important to acknowledge that NGLA is an incredible conference experience. I've had the opportunity to attend a couple of times and facilitate, ed sessions and the programming blocks, and it's a well-run conference, a well-run experience. The students are eager to be there, they're eager to learn and do things differently, and so that gets me excited. For me specifically in my keynote, one of the things that is important to me is that there's a relation that exists. I might be the speaker, I might be the one on stage, but every person is an active participant in determining how that keynote goes forward. And so I'm excited in working with all the participants in the conference to just help you figure out your action plan. My role, my job is not to give you the answers, but hopefully it's to clear the path out a little bit and help unclutter your mind so that you can figure out what steps and what actions you need to take to move your organization forward.
Awesome. Yeah, we want to make sure that they leave with something from the conversation, and it's not just that was cool, right? It is, here's the next step that I feel like I can do from those pieces. I love hearing that as a reflective piece of why you love talking and speaking to all of our attendees in that type of way. Michelle, how about you?
So, little known fact, NGLA is home for me. I went to the University of Delaware undergrad. My very first Greek leadership conference was NGLA. It was back when it was in the Adams Mark Hotel in Philadelphia. That hotel doesn't even exist anymore. And I remember going as an undergrad. I'm like, this is so cool. I had never seen a gathering of so many different types of fraternities and sororities in one area. And for the next 3 days, we're going to talk and learn. And I'm going to listen to speakers and facilitators. So every time I get to come to NGLA, I feel like now am I going home? I'm like going home to my people. We're people from the Northeast, right? And from the East Coast. And like, you know, there's a swag about us. So like just being in community with the students who attend NGLA is one of the things that gets me super energized, super hyped. And I feel like I'm coming home. I'm also coming home to some good food in the area, right? Shout out to the Northeast. Pittsburgh has some delicacies. Gonna check that out. Billy, if you want to come with me, let me know. So those are the things, just being in community in that area of the country with students who are really committed to change and being change agents, and really where I got my start. As a young sorority woman, I know the impact it had on my life just going to that one conference. I'm like, I think I might do this for a living. And fast forward 25 years, you know, I do this for a living, and I get to speak at the conference that started it all. So that's one of the things that gets me really hype about coming to NGLA, because it literally is like coming home.
Well, I hope that all the Blue Herons watching, I'd have the largest delegation this year in support, right? We're going to push and help them to ensure that they're supporting alum in that type of way too. Yeah, we definitely love the Pittsburgh area and the community that brings, as well as we get ready for I mean, February will be here before we know it. I am like not ready, but I'm so excited, particularly after these conversations with y'all, and as we get ready for the rest of our educational programming that'll be occurring at the conference as well too. I do just want to have one additional, well, there's two questions, but the last one in this piece is to get to know our speakers a little bit better on a personal level. What is one thing that like you have a abundance of? It's either something you collect or just have the most of. As an example, for me, I am a big Funko Pop collector. I have about 800 Funko Pops in my upstairs office. My wife says there are, you know, worse habits to have than buying Funko Pops. So that is my piece. But to get to know our speakers a little bit better, what is your piece that is either something you collect or something you just have an absurd amount of? And Billy, if you want to go first.
Yeah, so actually, you know, people that know me are going to be, maybe they're not going to be surprised at my answer, but they're going to be surprised I'm not giving one answer, because I have something I collect a lot of, but I'm not going to share that one today. Maybe you can convince me later. But for me, it's books. I have an abundance of books. I have 3 different like bookshelf cases in my house in 3 different rooms. Each one is overflowing with books. They're laying on the floor beside the bookcase. I have a bookcase in my office that, you know, has books laying, you know, stacked up. It has other books laying sideways on top of them. I'm the type of person that if somebody says, "Oh, this is a good book," I'm gonna get the book and I'm gonna read it, and then I'm gonna hold on to it forever. So maybe one day I'll have a library purge.
No, awesome. Well, we know what to add into a little gift basket for y'all. That too. John, how about you?
If it's physical, it's climbing jackets, because I can never throw them away because they're all connected to memories. If it's not physical, then it's business ideas. The number of ideas I come up with to start a business, they're absurd, and there's no way I could start all of these companies, but that's my thing I have in spades.
We call them toothbrush thoughts for us, because shower thoughts were not something that we wanted to explore, so we call them toothbrush. So those toothbrush thoughts as you're brushing your teeth, yep, you just got to add them to another note in the Notes app itself.
That's
but
right.
Michelle, how about you?
So people who know me will not be surprised by that. I work out 7 days a week. I am an avid Peloton fanatic. I have the bike, the rower, and the treadmill, but I'm on a 66-day streak. I've worked out every day for the last 1,366 days, and it's 358 weeks. And I have no intentions of breaking that streak at all. So I have physically moved my body in some way to the tune of exercise for that long. Even on vacation, I'm actually going to India for Christmas, and I plan on working out every single day. My anxiety is, how do I get the exercise streak while I'm on the plane for the 18-hour flight? So I collect the streak in just working out for sure.
Are those rings on your watch that you're okay?
They're closing. They're closing. They're closing.
That was a big pandemic thing for me, so I definitely get that, but nowhere near the amount that you have.
Yeah.
But no, awesome. Like I said, I like to kind of also end in that kind of note, so that way we get to know our speakers on a personal level too, not just for the topic that they will be speaking about, but that way, you know, we all human. So how do we understand people for their quirks or for who they are and what they enjoy in those types of ways outside of the topic that they're speaking about. But for our people who are watching virtually, we just want to invite you to register for the 2026 annual conference. Registration will open on November 17th. So we are just around the corner from our registration open dates. We want to make sure that for our FSA friends, our headquarter friends, or just our students who are super eager to be there, that you have those dates ready to go, so that way we can get you to hear from our awesome keynotes that were on this call with us today. But to wrap us up, if you just want to say one final reflection or challenge for the audience, that if you remember one thing from the conversation today, let it be, and you can fill in the blank in that type of way. Let's have John go first this time.
Your real power as a leader is not in what you say that your values are, but it's in how you live them when you are in the discomfort of the storms.
Awesome. Michelle?
I would say, if you are looking for a sign, if you are looking for the big stop sign in life that says, sign up to go to NGLA, let me take the next step. Let me tap a young emerging leader to go. Let me go ask my fraternity and sorority life advisor if there's money for me to go, or let me tap my headquarters to see if this is something I should go to. The answer is yes. If by hearing the three of us talk today, you should be inspired and ready and energized to go. And that's the one thing I want people to take away. Like, you know what? Let me take that action step and go ahead and get my registration in, get my hotel booked, and bring a couple of other people from our community to experience all of this.
And Billy, bring us home with your thoughts.
You know, I'm a big-time college football fan, and there's a movement happening in college football that I think is important that we talk about. And it's about creating culture. Right now, it started at Oklahoma State. When a team is losing and not doing well, there is a fan that is going to an empty section of the stadium, taking off their shirt and waving around their head. And they're slowly joined by more and more people until the fan base grows and grows in that way. And we're seeing college after college see this for their teams, for teams that are traditionally losing. Just because you're losing doesn't mean all is lost. What it means is there's time to step up, and it's time to create the culture that you want to see in your organization. And we're seeing this play out live and in front of us. I've seen time and time again, when that fan section gets up there, that first person took courage to be there. They stood there alone, but they're slowly joined by other people. And we start to see an excitement go over the stadium. And oftentimes, the offensive, the home team or whatever the team is that's playing, they're starting to score touchdowns. They're starting to kick field goals. They're starting to put some points on the board. And that's our goal. Our goal is to think about the culture we want to create and get some points on the board to move our organization forward.
Awesome. I mean, great advice from all three of our keynotes today. I want to thank you for joining us, and a big thank you to Michelle, Billy, and John for sharing their time, their insight, and their energy today. I hope this conversation gave you a sense of what's ahead and spark some ideas to carry us into this new year as we get ready for February 2026 NGLA. Thank you again for spending part of your day with us, and we hope that you'll join us in February as we look forward to seeing how we bring these ideas to life and in your chapter and communities. I hope you have a great rest of your day.